Okay, hello. Here we are with Silvia Casorrán, Deputy Chief Architect of Barcelona City, an environmental scientist in your training, and now working yes, at Barcelona. Thank you for being here. We're very happy to talk with you.
Thank you, Annika.
Right, and
Hi, everyone.
we are going to start right away with a city walkability rating. And I'm excited about this because this is the first one I've done for Barcelona. So our city walkability ratings are on a scale of 1 to 10. I think this should be interesting because of your role as Deputy Chief Architect, but obviously as a resident of the city, how you experience it. So we're going to do walkability, public transit, and cycling. So for walkability, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your rating for Barcelona?
Barcelona, it's 9.
Really strong. So what would you change to bring it up to a 10?
Well, we are already a very accessible city for everyone, but we need to improve this. I mean, we are not accessible still 100% for everyone, so we need to work on this.
Okay, improve accessibility. Specifically for what groups?
For blind people, for instance, and for wheelchairs. We are quite good with this, and we work together with them, with the people, directly, but still we need some improvements, especially related in the combination with public transportation, for instance.
Okay, but it seems like that definitely Barcelona is a place to look to for a lot of great foundational walkability practices in the city design. How about public transportation?
Well, we need to improve metropolitan connections, so I would say a 7.
Okay, and what are the public transport options there?
We've got metro, bus, tram, train, and also funicular.
It's really diverse.
Yeah, very diverse. The tramway is the best because it's the most accessible one, the most comfortable, but it's not connected yet. I mean, we've got a link of 3 kilometers to connect 9 municipalities. So we are working with this now. And the metro is also very accessible. Almost all the stations are accessible 100%, but not all of them yet. We still miss some of them, just 5 of 100, so very few, but important ones. And buses are also 100% accessible, so they are also quite good. But the commercial speed is not that high with the bus, so it's quite slow still in the city.
I have a question about the trams. You said the trams are very accessible. They're the best in terms of it. Are they all modern, or do you have some historic trams?
Yeah, they are all modern because at the 70s we stopped with the tramways, with the old ones. Then we started again with them in the 2004, I think, yes. Yeah, they are modern.
Well, that's really exciting. I look forward to learning more about Barcelona's then accessible public transit, because if your buses are 100% accessible trams and almost all the metro stations, it'd be really interesting to have visuals to see what that means and how, speak with the people who've implemented all those accessibility elements. Okay, and cycling.
Cycling, I would say we are now at the 6. We used to be like very, very, very low a few years ago, and now we're improving, and the improvements are rather good, but we still need to improve, especially about parking, safe parking, especially and also metropolitan connections. We are working with them, but we still need to invest some more. And we also need something very important for family mobility, which is to get wider cycle lanes, because we've got many cycle lanes, but most of them are too narrow to go just by 2. So when you are with your kids or with somebody else, it's very uncomfortable to cycle. And we also need to improve in the speeds, in checking the speeds of the city, because most of the city is 30 kilometers per hour. But not in real. So yeah, we need to work with this. We will put a few radars to check the speed this next month, and we hope this will improve. But in Barcelona, people like to drive fast still.
So the radars, you think, will help? This should
Yeah, the
help.
radios will help.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, good. So your primary area, you're the specialist in active mobility. So can you share at Pedestrian Space, where that's our main focus is walkability, but we are broadly interested in the whole umbrella of active mobility and the paradigm shift towards sustainable urban mobility, and how cities are making that shift, what they're doing with infrastructure policy, but also how they're communicating with the public. I think that could be really exciting to learn about Barcelona. Um, you know, how the city also engages the public on these issues. So I'd love to hear more about what you do in a nutshell.
Yeah, well, in fact, in Barcelona, we mainly walk. I mean, the commuters are walking like 65% of the trips in the daily life, and only 15% of the people in Barcelona drive, like motorbike or car. So,
Okay.
I mean, the internal trips are really sustainable already. It's true that when we look at the metropolitan area, then the amount of people that take the car, it's higher, it's like 25%, but still it's quite low. I mean, in Barcelona, it's a very compact city. We live 1.7 million inhabitants in just 100 square kilometers. So this is really, really dense. So the distances of everything are really close. So we mainly walk. So this is like, we are pedestrians, but the public space that we got from last century, it was dedicated, from the 60s, like in all the cities in the world, it was mostly dedicated to cars. So we are still in this transition that we need to get back the place, the space from the cars to give it back to the people. And this is a quite hard situation, because always taking space from the cars, I don't know why, because it's just a few people move by car, so it should be very clear, what's the objective. But that's always quite hard in terms of these discussions, media, politics, and so on. But the will is very clear, and what we are doing, our projects, is just removing space from cars for parking or for driving, and giving it back to people, and to green also, because in Barcelona we've got also a very important lack of green areas. The World Health Organization is saying that we should need between 10 and 15 square meters per inhabitant. In Barcelona, the average it's under 7, and in some areas, like in the Champla district, in the central district, this number goes under 2 square meters per inhabitant. So, and the parks in Barcelona are really small when compared to other big cities. So we are putting a lot of green also in the streets. And now we are with the project Superblocks in Barcelona. We are putting a lot of green in the streets. We want every resident to have a green area or a green corridor in less than 200 meters from home. That's our objective. So yeah, our main challenge is this greening and giving more space to pedestrians. And also we've got a very important project, which is Let's Protect the Schools, which is creating school streets also safe for kids and also healthy, because in Barcelona we've got a very important problem of pollution, of air pollution, but also noise pollution. So we need to tackle these two things, and especially also of course the climate emergency, that it's also affecting all the cities in the world. But yeah, the path to follow, it's clear. It's removing space from the cars, to give it to bikes, to give it to pedestrians. And our city, it's very compact, as I mentioned. So the maximum distance is generally is 10 kilometers. So it's a distance that it's not walkable, but it's cyclable. So when you can cycle, you go there, you reach the destination faster than by public transportation. So it's very efficient to cycle. So we really need to improve with this.
Well, fantastic. So this is very comprehensive. What are some of the most critical challenges you see to achieving? I mean, there's so many things you detailed here, but for example, school streets, what are some of the obstacles or challenges to creating them?
Well, with the school streets, the project is being quite nice in the way that everyone is accepting the situation. And when you put children in the middle of the planning, no, of the urban planning of the city, everyone is in favor of this. So no one is complaining with these measures. That's really nice.
Yeah.
Because when we put a new cycle lane, then you remove car parks, then it's someone is complaining. With all the transformations in the city, someone is complaining, but not with the transformation of the school streets. So that's really interesting. What we do is in the streets where the traffic is very low. What we do is just painting the whole street, because we do this by tactical urbanism, and we spend an average of 70,000 euros per school. So that's quite low to change the environment. So the interventions are always very, mainly paint and tactical interventions like flexible furniture and playable elements, no? Because in the city we want also the city to become a playable or a playing city. I don't know the English word, the right word, but it's not like we don't want to put playgrounds everywhere, but we want that the city is a place where children can play everywhere and where they feel safe and healthy everywhere. So what we do, we've got in Barcelona almost 600 schools, and now we are working with the first 150. In 100 we already finished the works. We are now with the next 50. And what we do is we work together with communities to define the actions around school. And when the traffic is very low, we take all the space from the street, although we allow the traffic to ride, but then just 10 kilometers per hour, really, really slowly. And if it's not possible, then we take the corner around the school where it's usually a car parking. We remove the car parking, and then we take the corner just for the people to stay. And then we put benches and small greenery, not real trees, but in pots, and this kind of elements. I think that's the really nice project, because as I mentioned, everyone is in favor of protecting the health of the kids. So, and it's a way to transfer. I mean, the problem with this is that we are not really affecting the pollution. I mean, the improvements on the air quality, the improvements on the noise are clear, the improvements on the accidents are clear, but not the improvements on the air quality, because you need more structural measures for all the city, no? Not just these small interventions. But then we are working also with low emission zones and with other measures, no? with more general objectives. But
Okay, the Superblocks, I've been reading so much about your Superblocks. They're really getting a lot of really wonderful, very exciting media attention. So just briefly, I think you're getting a lot of interest from all over the world on your Superblocks, and people are visiting and bringing the concept back to. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that, about how the Barcelona Superblock concept in particular has been inspiring other cities and visitors you've had from other cities who are looking to, get some inspiration and practical tips when they come to Barcelona.
Well, Superblock, it's a very simple idea in the end, that all the cities in the world were already implementing this concept, because it's just trying to avoid the through traffic in some areas of the city. But then when you do this in an old town, no, like with a narrow streets and with a medieval town or whatever, then it's clear for the people that in these streets cars cannot they don't enter, because they are the streets are too small and they need to be mainly for pedestrians. But then when you try to do this, as we did in the general at the Eixample, how do you say, the 20 meters wide streets, where cars occupied all the space during last century, then this is the real challenging thing, because it's like you've got an isotrope network of streets, and then you decide that this one street of each three, or two streets of each three, they become a green corridor or a space for pedestrians or for active mobility. And that's the shocking thing, because you are suddenly putting some barriers or some psychological barriers, because we are not putting real barriers, but you are changing the rules, no, to move in this area. And then you are saying to everyone here, the pedestrians and cyclists and public transit also, they can go through, no problem, but the private transit, you need to turn around at the next corner, and then at the next corner you go out to the first place. So it's a question of putting a hierarchy on the streets, and then defining which ones will be for traffic, not only for traffic, because in Barcelona we try that at least 50% of the public space is dedicated to the pedestrians. Okay, but you say, okay, in these streets traffic can go 50 kilometers per hour. And in the rest, it's just 20 kilometers per hour or even 10. So it's like, in the end, you create some neighborhood streets or residential streets. I mean, it's not, that's why I say the concept of superblock is not that innovative, because I think other cities in the world, they are working with these traffic calming areas. But then the nice thing of the superblock was to do it in this isotrope network, that it was all dedicated to cars. And then you suddenly say, no, this street will be for pedestrians, and this street will be, that's the change, I think.
And when the street becomes a green corridor, it's permanent. The superblocks, that's the important feature too. It's not temporary or for part of the day, it's permanent.
Well, we started in 2016 with the first superblock, the pilot in Poblenou, and then it was tactical, mainly tactical. Oh. The second one in Sant Antoni, it's half tactical and half structural or permanent. But when we say tactical, we don't refer that it's temporal. I mean, it's temporary in the meaning that it needs to be renovated, or that maybe in the future it will be transformed into something structural. But it wasn't a temporary action like this superblock will be removed. No, so in the end, the Superblocks project is very clear that the aim is that all the city works as a superblock. No, so we were first intervening in different areas, and we are still in different neighborhoods around the city. But now with the green corridors, what we are doing is we say scale up the intervention, because we go to cross all the streets that are crossing the city, the whole city, and that are really highways. We've got some streets that support more traffic in Barcelona than the highways in Catalonia. So this is really, I mean, we've got one street is getting 90,000 cars per day. And in fact, we are having more cars crossing the city center than using the ring roads. So this is crazy. I mean, in the city center of Barcelona, we've got every day 350,000 cars crossing the city center, and in the ring roads, the two of them, 340,000. So this is crazy, and this is something we need to change, because we've got real problems with pollution, and we've got real these problems bring deaths, and bring health problems. It's not something, I mean, from the city we need to act. So the Superblock project now in Eixample, in the city center area, well, what we are doing is creating all these corridors, and in these corridors will be for pedestrians and for green and for bikes, and of course the residents, the neighbors can always access to their home and everything, all the services. So no problem. The firemen, the ambulance, because sometimes it's like, oh, no one can access, everyone can access. It's not. And we really hate to put obstacles in the streets. So what we do is we try to arrange all these changes just by the directions, or by the priorities, because in the end, the obstacles are also obstacles for our firemen and also obstacles for other users. So we hope that the people get more educated, or more civic about how to behave in the public space, and how to respect always the most vulnerable. And we are working with this. So it's both. It's changing the public space, but also trying to help the mind of our citizens to protect always the most vulnerable.
I love that you said that. We're going to be ending here in a minute, but I think this is a perfect place to end. And in fact, I'd love to interview you in the future more on exactly what you said, trying to help the mind of the citizen. I love how you phrase that. And you mentioned earlier about, when you create the green corridor, it's also creating the psychological barrier for movement. For example, a car driver who realizes they can't go down this street anymore, and that's at pedestrian space. It's one of like the focal threads is how do we communicate about walkability? How do we communicate about the need for, at the citizen level, to change our behavior too? So cities are making changes to infrastructure and policy, but as residents, how do we also take part in the shift and change our behavior? And so I really love the way you phrase that, trying to help the mind of the citizen. So I'd love to return and circle back and do an interview with you all about that psychological aspect, because you're really dialed into it, and that's very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I always say we need more sociology and less engineering, no, with the transformation of the city and of the mobility, because it's, in the end, most of the people are walking. So why don't we give most of the people in the streets for the people, no, to walk? I mean, it's
right.
quite
That's the
basic.
puzzle, and it's a global puzzle. It's happening. It's in many cities. So I think it'll be really fascinating to learn more about what you're doing. So thank you for your time today, and I hope to talk to you more in the future.
Thank you, Anika. Yeah, sure.